All right, welcome in. I just realized we have total bases on there, so bear with me for a second. I'm going to get Rob and I in here. There we go. There we go. We are moving into baseball season, but not quite yet. We still have one full court press left for the rest of the year, one college basketball game, one more show parlay. We hit the show parlay. I was just joking with Rob off air. It cost me my bet on the game. I had Tulsa plus 5.5 last night. So a disappointing way for the season to end for me, for my clients, because of course that's a brutal beat. Plus 5.5. I think we had a 5-point lead. Trying to remember like a 5-point lead with under a minute left. Somehow don't get the ball in bounds, going to OT, and then fail to cover the 5.5 in overtime. So a difficult one for me to end the season, but it did cash our show parlay from Friday. Of course, we had Oklahoma on Saturday. We had UConn on Saturday, and then we had the over in Tulsa, Auburn, which needed that overtime period to get up and over the total. So we'll take it here. We're going to, maybe we can put a little cherry on top with the show parlay today. Rob and I will try to find a side and a total in the national championship game. But Rob, how was your weekend? Did you end up having action on that Tulsa Auburn total for your clients?
I did. And, the overtime helped me out because I had the Tulsa Auburn game over the total, 159.5. I think it dropped to by Sunday. And yeah, the 3-pointer out of the corner to send it to overtime. You take those breaks when you get them. Oftentimes you don't get them, but as it was, they needed that to get to the over. That combined with an earlier play in the afternoon, the CBC, the Crown tournament, Oklahoma, West Virginia. That game total, I played over 138.5. Thought that was especially light the way West Virginia had been scoring inside this tournament. Kind of took on a different type of identity, Adam, inside the tournament. I don't know if Ross Hodge is thinking about playing a little more up tempo next season, but it looked like if that was a springboard into 2026-27, then maybe something to keep in our notebook about the way they played this. It could just be that it was a tournament, guys go out there and play carefree. I don't know, but they did get their share of points. Oklahoma kind of threw one away in that game. West Virginia was more than happy to take it in overtime. It's an exciting tournament. I have to say, for a tournament with only 8 teams, there were, I think, 3 overtime games inside those that small amount of games, and a lot of scoring, a lot of excitement. So closed that one out good and closed the NIT out good last night, as I mentioned, and let's hope to close out the national championship good, all 3 of them. I got you muted.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that. I was trying to get this up to Twitter, but it was the Tulsa game was a great game to be at. The West Virginia Oklahoma game was another fantastic game. You made a good point about, you think back to last year. I think Nebraska won that Crown tournament last year. Look at the springboard for them into this season, starting 20-0, making it to the Sweet 16. So yeah, maybe West Virginia is a team that we look at going into next year, and what would be I believe year 2 for Hodge out there in Morgantown. But we still have one more game to look at today, and that, of course, is the national championship game. I'm still in Indianapolis. I will be headed back to Lucas Oil Stadium tonight for what I hope to be what I hope is a better game. Not that the UConn Illinois game wasn't a bad game by any means. I think it was a surprising game. I don't think many thought that UConn would control the game throughout the way that they did. Illinois really had a tough time hitting shots. They just couldn't buy one. But the bigger talking point, Rob, and where we will start our breakdown of the national championship game, Michigan looking borderline invincible in that performance against Arizona. It's got some folks thinking that they've already won this game. And as you can see by my choice of outfit today, I might disagree with that, but it's hard to poke holes into anything Michigan did on Saturday and anything they've done so far in this tournament. So just talk to me about Michigan in general a little bit, and are you looking at the Wolverines in any way, shape, or form here?
Well, they were, I mean, dominant against Arizona. It was a game where, honestly, from the opening tip, you thought Arizona was maybe a little bit overmatched. I did keep waiting around for. First off, I didn't have a play on the game, so I was able to sit back and watch it just as a viewer and a fan without having to carry an unbiased opinion throughout the game. I thought, Adai Mara, his size was incredible in that game. 26 points, 11 for 15 from the floor. Arizona had no real answer. And I thought perhaps aside from Koa Pete, we talked a lot about the Arizona freshmen this season, but the freshmen kind of maybe they caved under the big lights and the fact that they were behind a little bit in that game. Burries did not have a particularly good game the way he's been so steady all season long. But when you can take Arizona, a team that lives offensively inside the arc, and hold them to 37% shooting from 2-point range, that's a terrible number for anybody to only shoot 37% from 2-point range. Their bigs couldn't get it done against the Michigan bigs. And, Michigan's just one of those teams. Once they get a lead like that, they're very good at extending or at least hanging on to margin. They don't generally let things get away. They seem to, I don't want to use a bad analogy here, but let's just say that they sense it when they have a team on the ropes. And Arizona was on the ropes for the majority of that. Again, Tommy Lloyd falls short. Dusty May, who had made it to a Final Four with FAU earlier in his career, gets through the Final Four now with this talented Michigan team. And I'll say this, Adam, after Thanksgiving, we've done this show now November, December, January, February, March, April, close to 6 months. We've been on every day, Monday through Friday, and a lot of Saturdays. If I just go back to those Thanksgiving tournaments, and one of the shows we were on thought Michigan was the best team in the country then, turning out that they probably are the best team in the country now. When we get to full breakdown of this game, I'll talk a little bit about UConn, but just from the Michigan side, as you asked, they're just tough. They play all three levels offensively. They can transition you to death if you want to go fast with them. And the defense, as I mentioned, at the rim defense, inside the paint defense against a team that lives in there and has been one of the best in the nation was incredible on Saturday. So I think really fast and just summing up Michigan, their games to that point had been mostly versus fast teams, up-tempo teams. The only one that wasn't was Tennessee. You brought another up-tempo team in Arizona, except that they had a really good interior, which they hadn't faced yet. They've dismantled everybody who's come their way. So it's hard to go against them here.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about, since we've only got one game left, Garth brings up a prop that I find very interesting, and I think he's probably on something here. So Garth says, I'm avoiding a side and playing Elliot Cadeau plus 20 points and assists. Brilliant game plan by Michigan, by Dusty May, to essentially have Cadeau miss shots on purpose, right? To an extent where he was kind of throwing lobs off the backboard, trying to miss so it would put it on the other side of the rim to get a putback. That, I can guarantee you that won't work tonight because Dan Hurley is as good as anyone at preparing on short notice. So they showed their hand in that regard. That worked against Arizona, but UConn's going to be ready for that tonight. That's just not going to work here. Jordan Majeski put out such a good stat. UConn, their last 11 games in the tournament on short prep. So the 48-hour turnaround prep. Dan Hurley, 11-0 with a 10-point cover margin. So, as far as like quick turnaround, now, granted, Dusty May was courtside with his notepad the entire first game prepping for maybe he loved his game plan against Arizona so much he knew he was going to be in this game on Monday night, getting a jump on preparing for the team that won, ended up winning the Illinois UConn game. But, you got to think, okay, that can't be how Michigan goes about it. And if Cadeau is not missing on purpose and not getting credit for those assists, right? Because, those are counting as missed shots. So even though Cadeau is essentially, those are assists he's not getting credit for really when he misses off the backboard. I think his numbers could be a little bit deflated, if you will, based on, I think he was like 2 for 14 from the field, but like 4 or 5 of those misses were passes. So I think that's a very interesting way to look at it, Garth. I could not put you, regardless who you like on the side here, that prop is probably worth a look.
Yeah, I could see that happening, Adam. UConn obviously solid defensive guards. We should talk about, as we get into the game here, let me just round it out with a little assessment of UConn, Illinois on Saturday. UConn seemed to take a different approach against the Illinois team that they had already beaten once this season. They threw up 30-plus three-pointers, not necessarily the way Dan Hurley's offense plays the game with 30 or more threes, but they saw something in that Illinois defense where they liked their opportunity. Didn't even shoot them well. Honestly, they did not shoot the three-pointer all that well. They made a bunch of them because they shot a bunch of them. I think Caravan and Demery, or Caravan and Ball, I forget which combo it was, were 2 for 13 from 3. Alex Caravan couldn't find anything. As I check the box real quick here, it was Caravan and Demery, 2 of 13. The guys to make the shots in that game were the three-pointers were Solo Ball and Braylon Mullins, who even hit one off glass. But they went to the three-pointer a little bit here. It was not a good offensive game out of UConn, but it was less of an offensive game out of Illinois, who looked, I don't know, they looked a little bit overwhelmed, a little bit intimidated, a little bit flustered for a lot of that game. They did make a run where they seemed to get their mindset in a good place again, but UConn took that away. So they're very, very good at stuff like that. And one more time, Terrace Reed was an absolute terror underneath. I mean, this guy has been, if UConn were to win this tournament tonight, I think that he would be the most outstanding player if it goes to the winning team, because Terrace Reed has virtually carried, and he even shot free throws, Adam. I think it was 5 for 5 from the free throw line, which is crazy. It's like a 57% free throw shooter. To add a little bit of drama to it, he was a Michigan transfer to UConn, so obviously playing his ex-team here. So UConn, Illinois, I think, UConn just had a good game plan. Maybe Illinois is just a bad matchup for UConn, and they find their way here. If we get into tonight a little bit, we're looking at 7, I think, right now, 7 and 144.5 side and total. One thing I noticed about the UConn-Illinois game when we analyzed it last week on Friday, I thought that because Illinois, listen, the UConn weakness all season long, it's going to be repetitive, but I think it holds true here again tonight. Their weakness all season long has been they're loose with the basketball. If there's one complaint Danny Hurley's had about his team all season long, it's that they turn it over too much. Illinois just doesn't force turnovers. Illinois doesn't pressure. And I know you made this point throughout the season. Let's make it again. The teams that gave UConn difficulty, let's face it, St. John's and Seton Hall. Teams that get up on the guards and force turnovers. Illinois doesn't do that. Connecticut was allowed to basically, I think they committed 4 turnovers the whole game. They're allowed to handle the ball, bring it up. Michigan does not force turnovers. They're not a big turnover forcing team. So again, maybe UConn, if they can have a majority of their possessions that at least result in shot opportunities, I think that's a good sign for UConn. It's going to be on a defensive end where they're going to have to lock down, because I can't get the Duke first half out of my mind, where Duke just did whatever they wanted and then for whatever reason collapsed final 3 minutes of the first half and then the remainder of the game. Because if Michigan's allowed to do whatever they want, it's not going to go the same way for UConn. Can't get behind the way they did to Duke. I will say this, Danny Hurley has that Duke-Michigan blueprint to go back to and study and say, how did Duke do it against these guys? Because Duke did beat Michigan, and maybe execute some and interject some similarities into his game plan. UConn's tough to beat by margin. There's no question about it. I'll reserve picks for a little bit later in this show, but right now I think that's one advantage that UConn could have. They're not going to be forced into turnovers, I wouldn't think. The solo ball injury does come into play a little bit here. In a walking boot yesterday, but off the injury report today. Well, we lost Adam. Let's keep going here until we get Adam back. On the other side of the coin, guys. Lendeborg, a little bit of an injury on Saturday, but it seems like he's good to go here. So all the players should be involved here. Question for UConn on the defensive end. Again, Adai Mara had a great game on Saturday. Can UConn slow him down? The Terrace Reed-Mara matchup is going to be extremely important in this game. Does one get into foul trouble? Does one is one able to get the better of the other on the offensive end? I think Terrace Reed, for what it's worth, could give Mara some trouble here. But boy, that wingspan underneath stops a lot of stuff at the hoop. Really quick, and I'm going to turn it back over to you, Adam. I would think, I'll talk about game plan in a second. Go ahead, jump in here, and because I think I have thoughts on how Danny Hurley's going to go about his game plan here.
Yeah, so I don't know if that was me or my system kind of crashed, although I don't think it was my internet. I just got kicked off by StreamYard. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're all good again.
That was quite odd. I just did the entire baseball show, no problem. My internet's working great here in the whatever hotel, whatever Hilton property I'm in Indianapolis that I've been in for the most of the week. I haven't had an issue all week, so sorry about that. For the viewers, I see Joey Cheese has rolled in. He says Alex Carabin gets number 3 tonight. Listen, you asked about matchups for UConn. A lot of the stuff that UConn does theoretically should give Michigan some trouble. The fact that like UConn is not, they're not going to basically try to match sort of like big on big at the rim with Michigan. Something that Arizona kind of, I feel like, had to do at times. Like UConn doesn't really go to the rim a ton anyway, outside of Terrace Reed. And Reed, it's not even like he's going at the rim from a like downhill perspective. He's more or less going to get the ball and try to post someone up. And then, of course, Hurley, all of like the off the ball cutting and screening. I mean, that's tough on tape. That theoretically, Rob, that should be tough on Michigan too. And then we'll just go, I'll just go to the chat here because someone, kind of put it like this. He said, plain and simple, Michigan wins and covers. Load up, see you next year. I guess the thought is, Danny Hurley, great preparation. UConn, they deny transition. They do a lot of the things that should keep this game close. And then you have to ask yourself, is Michigan just too good? Are they game plan proof at this point? I lean toward no. I lean toward UConn being able to do some things to keep this one closer. My number, Rob, was 5.9. So I see a little value where it currently is at 7. I'll throw this back to you. I don't really know what to make about the solo ball or Yaxel Lendeborg injuries. Neither were on the injury report. But, Lendeborg went back to the locker room. It didn't look great for him. So, that would be concerning if he's not 100%. Again, I think you're splitting hairs by the time you get to a championship game. But I do think there's some Michigan bias in the market here that's giving you a little bit of value on the UConn side.
It's crazy as you say that. We've talked all season long about the 2 most overvalued teams in college basketball, and it showed up in their point spread records throughout the season. Michigan, always beating teams, but always laying a little bit too much. Connecticut, always beating teams, but always laying a little bit too much. Connecticut against some inferior competition in the Big East. Michigan against really good competition in the Big Ten. Still, the odds makers have had these 2 priced extremely high all season long. And here we get Michigan -7. Couple of things here. And when we go through it, if Mara can be somewhat contained, Arizona couldn't contain him, but I do have the feeling that Terrace Reed and company can. And if Lendeborg is slightly less than 100%, and I don't know exactly what Dan Hurley's going to do, but I think you take your best and your most veteran player who sizes up with him and Alex Caravan and make sure he locks up on Lendenborg, at least make his life a little more difficult. That leaves Morez Johnson and Elliot Cadeau as the two threats for UConn. The threats outside of that would be their guards are big. I mean, Mullins is big. Demery's big. A little bit bigger, a little more size than what Michigan has. Where UConn's concerned, Adam, in reading an awful lot from beat writers and trying to just diagnose which way, nobody knows which way Dan Hurley's going to go. He's keeping that close to the vest. But there are some of the opinion that UConn will try to get out in transition as best they can to get easy buckets rather than have to face the number one defense in the country. That could be. I'm not so sure. Dan Hurley doesn't just go to, let's make this a 66-62 game, or at least attempt to. The Duke-Michigan game was very low scoring, and Duke came out on top. And to your point about running guys through screens constantly 2 and 3 times on a possession, does that beat up Michigan a little bit and take a little bit out of their offensive end? It could very well be. The problem is if you get behind, you can't necessarily execute that every time down. Now, you could counter by saying they got down by 19 to Duke, but they didn't really run full-blown half-court offense to recover from that 19-point deficit. There was a lot of defense, and there was some transition. With UConn, I think the answer is always real simple. And again, it doesn't sound like much of handicapping, but for UConn, it really is as simple as, can they make shots? They've been a team all season long that hasn't made shots. And it's why they haven't covered a lot of games. When they do make shots, to me, they look as good as Michigan does when they make shots. When they're falling, UConn is very, very difficult to beat. So tonight's going to be one of those nights. It's their second look at the rims. Played on Saturday, play again tonight. So maybe the poor shooting Saturday was some Illinois defense, some sightline stuff, whatever. But it's your second opportunity to shoot at these rims. Solo ball, I really don't believe has been that important of an offensive player for quite a while now for Connecticut. I mean, he has been in a shooting slump for a long, long time. So if his offense suffers a little bit tonight, there's probably guard play in Demery and Mullins that can pick that up, Malachi Smith, etc. So they've got enough. And they've probably got, I don't know, maybe one plus 1.5 more options offensively than does Michigan. I mean, what Michigan does is really good, but I think they're probably 6-7 deep as opposed to 8-9 deep on the other side. The +7 is tempting, but on the same token, +7 is scary as well. The 144.5 here, I had taken Duke team total and cashed this ticket over against UConn. That number was 69.5. Tonight, if you want to do the same thing with Michigan, it's 76.5. Potentials there, 5 straight 90-point games. All of these numbers are difficult to bet into. I think the one I like the best, Adam, is the UConn team total over 68.5. My feeling is that Michigan doesn't turn you over, as I said earlier. So UConn's going to be able to have scoring opportunities. And I think they'll make more shots than they did in the prior game against Illinois. 68.5 just seems relatively low. And there's never any give up in a championship game. Just going to extend it as long as you can and pray for the best. So I think UConn getting to 69 might be my best look in this game.
Yeah, Memphis Money says trying to talk up UConn. Like, listen, we're in the championship game. I won't have a bet on this game. Like, I'm really not trying to talk anyone up. Like, this is really just kind of like, coming out, laying out some different thoughts. Like, I kind of said this with the Final Four. Pretty strong case you can make for both sides. I don't think there's anyone that got to those Final Four games, to be perfectly honest. Anyone that I talked to here this weekend, I've been hanging out with a lot of like very, respected college basketball people in the space that, some sports bettors, some just, basketball contributors to media and whatnot. And it's like that you could have on Saturday, you could have made a great case for UConn and Illinois going into those games. Michigan, I guess, that was a complete rout. But hey, listen, there was a lot of people that made pretty good cases for Arizona. It's kind of how I feel about this game. Again, I'll go back to the fact I do think there's a slight inflation in the number toward Michigan. I'm pretty confident my numbers at this point made it 5.9. And that's what I think. I think the number should be 5.5. Now, is 7 is 1.5 points in a championship game big enough to get me to the window with UConn? Probably not. But it's like, again, I don't think I'm like coming on here and making any sort of just like, crazy case for UConn or Michigan. I just think that there's a little number value for UConn. And I do see ways that Danny Hurley can disrupt Michigan. Cutting off transition, he's been really good at that. And then you were talking with the with the different types of things they can do off the ball. And then if the shots are falling, I've been saying this for 3 rounds now. I'll hand up. I guess I was wrong about UConn, but I also made that adjustment 2 weeks ago. I backed them against Michigan State. I haven't been just like anti-UConn really since Big East tournament. And then of course I like UCLA, but Bilodeau got hurt, so we'll never know. But since then, I haven't really been anti-UConn at all. And as far as Michigan's concerned, I just don't. Yeah, I'm not going to be surprised if they win by 15, because that's just what can happen in a game of this magnitude. So again, I think the best thing I can sort of offer here is pointing out that you would probably be paying a little bit of a premium at 7 or 7.5 on the side with Michigan, and that there are some analytical sort of schematic reasons to think that UConn can keep it close. I don't really have much more than that. That's about all I got.
Yeah, I don't want the audience to get things twisted kind of and think that, at least, I guess I'm speaking for you as well, but at least in my case, I don't think either of us thinks UConn is the better team on paper.
Correct.
But we don't bet, if you're going to bet money line, if you're going to ask us who you want to bet money line, other than the fact that it's so darn expensive to do so, you'd probably take Michigan just to win. If you're in a bracket pool and you have Michigan to go all the way, then, you're probably right. But the point spread is always the great equalizer. There's 7 points involved here. UConn has gone through UCLA, granted minus Bilodeau. Michigan State, one of the best coaches in tournament play in Tom Izzo. They've gone through Illinois. They've gone through Duke. Their path has been extremely hard. And what's been constant throughout the entire thing with UConn has been their defense. And I think they combine defense, Adam, with the ability to try and make things a half-court game. Yeah. Michigan has played a lot of, as I mentioned earlier, up-tempo teams where they're allowed to get out and show their athleticism, and it's resulted in 5 straight 90-point games. Tennessee never had an opportunity. Once Michigan got out early, Tennessee, as we've talked all season long, is limited to 2 scorers. Gillespie and Ament are the only 2 guys you can count on for Tennessee. They had no chance to come back against Michigan. This Connecticut team has shown comeback ability against Duke. I don't know. 7 is a tough number in this game. I do think that, from my perspective, even in what I think would be a losing effort tonight, I think UConn finds their way to 69 points. They just have to make a few more shots than what they made against Illinois. I think they probably will. Michigan's as good as their defense is, and maybe it's because they played faster tempo games through this tournament, but they've given up 69 almost every game. The only one they didn't was Tennessee. So for me, that's the way I'm going to look at this. I'm going to look at Connecticut over their 68.5 team total here, and hopefully we get a good game out of this one. I wouldn't think. Listen, the possibility for a Michigan route is there. The probability of a Connecticut route is not there. But I've been around a long time. I've been able to witness North Carolina State, Houston. Houston 5 Slammer Jam was such a huge favorite. I was able to witness Georgetown, Villanova. Georgetown was such a huge favorite. Sometimes methodical, defensive-minded teams that can make some shots keep themselves hanging around. So like I said earlier, too scared to take 7, too scared to lay 7. So I'll just go the other way and play total, team total, which has been good to me all season long. UConn over 68.5.
Yeah, listen, of anything we talked about on the show so far, I pulled Garth's comment back up. Elliot Cadeau having 20 plus points and assists makes all the sense in the world. Because, like, again, the game plan on Saturday was to have him miss shots on purpose. Like, it's pretty much confirmed in the post game. Dusty May, like, or one of the assistants or someone basically said, like, those misses were by design. He was trying to throw the ball to the other side of the rim, and he was pretty much using a missed layup to do it at times. That's over. They can't just go out and do it again because UConn has scouted that now. They're gonna be fully aware that that's possible. So, what's the counter to that? Well, probably try to make a couple of them, right? Like, or maybe get the ball to someone else. So, the thought that he would have a points assists prop that's maybe watered down from the last game that could go over this game is probably the most thing that makes the most sense of anything that I've sort of come across regarding this game. So that's a shout out to Garth for that. That's a great find. I think that's the best sort of thing we've talked about so far in relation to this game. Because that's one that's like, it's a rare scenario where they probably have to price in like a bad game from him that wasn't actually a bad game. Like, how often does that happen? So I'm with Garth. I like that. I like that over. If you can find that Cadeau points assist over, I think I'm going to ride with Garth on that.
Hey, Garth has been as sharp as anybody.
Yeah,
all season long. So who are we to ever disagree with anything Garth has to offer here? I'm not big on props in college basketball. Props, obviously, they'll be available tonight. They're not always available. If you're looking from a Connecticut side, I think you have to go with the obvious and take Alex Caravan points and rebounds combined. If there's one guy who's likely to show up for them off of a poor game the other night, it would be Alex Caravan. And I still think, I know Garth pointed out Elliot Cadeau, but I think I don't know. I hate the term X factor, but I can't think of a better one. I think the guy to look for on Michigan would be Morez Johnson. I think he's the guy that's overlooked a little bit here. I don't know that UConn has an answer for his ability to not only play inside, score and rebound, but his ability to stretch the floor. And that's what I like about Caravan, is he can do both as well. So those two guys in the front court, I think will do well in this game. And again, the top thing my handicap just drives me to the same thing. UConn to get to 69 points, win or lose.
Yeah, and listen, there maybe you take like I don't know, like I'm assuming there's an expanded prop menu for the championship game. Like there almost always is. I could see UConn hitting threes. I talked about it right at the top of the show. I don't think they're gonna try to go to the rim like a ton. Right. Outside of if they can get Terrace Reed the ball, he's gonna do what he's been doing. Like that's he may be able to back someone down and shoot over them, but I don't think you're gonna see a ton of like trying to go downhill and attack Michigan at the rim because they're just too good there. So you have to think UConn probably needs a pretty solid shooting performance from distance to be in this game. And then, Rob, you're talking about, well, what if it gets ugly? Well, if it gets ugly, then those threes are probably there. You might get 3 or 4 in garbage time if it gets ugly, right? Because then suddenly Michigan, Arizona got some looks in garbage time. Once that game was sort of over, I think they battled from like down 30 to down or whatever they were down, cut it to like 17. So maybe like a 3-point over makes for UConn might make some sense. I think the more we talk about the game, the more I think some of the prop type stuff makes far more sense than trying to bet side or total. But I can't argue with you, to think that UConn could get up and over, even if they get crushed, could get up and over that team total number. So I like that as well.
Well, from my end, as far as the game breakdown analysis is concerned, that's every bit of what I have to offer here. So I'm going to
Yep.
start it off, Adam, by just, this is our final show here, Full Court Press. I know as a duo here, we want to thank everybody who tuned in every single day. Listen, I'll just say very quickly that, when Adam approached me to do this show with him last summer, and those of you, the intelligence level in our chat is extremely high, and you'll understand that when you're handicapping football, September, October, November, December, college and pro, and have to dive into and NBA, because I'm doing an NBA show with Hakeem Prophet every single day. And then to commit to a everyday college basketball show. At the time when Adam asked me, I signed on right away, but knew the amount of work that has to be put into it. It was a great choice by myself. Glad to team up with Adam. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank BP Brian Power for the couple of weeks, 3 weeks that he spent with us. It was a great time to start the season. But again, this 6 months, partially because of the audience, you guys, we do this unscripted. We come on with one game and then you guys can fire away. So imagine being us. You can't fake your way through this. We had to do a ton of prep work. Adam, for one, I would thank you for making me better in low major conferences for sure. Somebody I could lean on with certain teams that I did not know enough about. But the audience, I'm not going to call out names because I'll certainly forget somebody. But you guys have been great contributors to the show. Thank you for making this a success. I know they're talking about running this back next year. So for everybody who's been involved, it's been a great 6 months for me. Hopefully we go out cashing tickets tonight. And Adam, I'll pass it over to you. Go ahead and give some final thoughts on the Full Court Press show.
Yeah, I mean, Rob, I couldn't have done it without you. Appreciate you sort of agreeing to do this at the beginning of the year. I think we made this show exactly what I wanted to make it. I can't wait to do it again next year. Appreciate everyone that's tuned in, for the season. I guess, as far as the season's concerned, I mean, overall, I wasn't thrilled with my college basketball season. From a wins losses standpoint for the service for clients. But I will say that, overall, it's very difficult to win in every sport. I pretty much offset the college basketball net, the negative for college basketball with winning in football, which I never really count on. So it was almost kind of like, the football wins that I had last season in football pretty much offset the college basketball. And then now hopefully we run it up in baseball season. But I am happy with how I bounced back personally from a bad November and December. So from January 1st on, we made a lot of that back. And I mean, I dug myself a pretty significant college basketball hole November and December. And so to turn it around, I am happy about that. To turn it around and get most of that back January to now was a solid way to close the season. Again, if you want to know what we're doing the rest of the way, Rob Vino's got a great show with Hakeem Prophet that really should be your go-to going forward since the NBA playoffs are right around the corner. If you want to sweat baseball out with me for 162 games, that's what I'll be doing over in the Wager Talk YouTube channel, 9 a.m. Monday through Friday, and then we do an 11 a.m. show, so 6 days a week. I'll be fully immersed in the bases pretty much until college basketball rolls around next year. So at any rate, I thought the season was a success. And I always say this, and again, I hope you guys, this is what I hope that you take from this, or if you purchase my plays or Rob's plays, it's like, winning on a service is always going to be more difficult than winning for yourself because you can't give out the stuff that comes out 5 minutes before tip. And, you can't give out bad numbers and whatnot. But if you're also learning something from the show, or you're learning something from the written analysis, which we put out a ton of, that you can then take and go maybe cash a ticket somewhere else, like that's always my goal, is to just give as much good information as I possibly can. So I like to think we do that on this show and then we do that in our service. And it's been an enjoyable season. I can't wait to see what happens in Indy tonight, and then 6 months from now, 5 months from now, tip it off again next year. So yeah, I had a really good time with you, Rob, and the chat and everyone. Thank you guys for a great season.
Yeah, hopefully the goal here, guys, real quick, was hopefully every day you tuned in, you learned something you didn't know when we signed on at 10 a.m. East to 11 p.m. And I will say one more time, thankful for the knowledge that comes out of the chat, because, you guys are all in different areas of the country and have expertise in some parts, and maybe are looking up. I've been in this business a long time, 33 years. You never go a day where you don't learn something new.
Right.
And you guys are giving me something new. Appreciate it totally. Hopefully you all come back and see us next season. And as Adam said, I would hope that everybody flips over to check out me and Hakeem through NBA, and check out Adam, Brian, and Tokyo Brandon for MLB. But like I say, the goal of this show was not to be a surface top 25 show, which I think anybody could waltz through. It was to try and make you guys better bettors, give you guys a little more knowledge. At the same time, you helped us. So thank everybody for tuning in every day.
Colin Gregory says, first year in the green in CBB, thanks to the show, helping narrow things down. That's the goal. That's exactly what we want you to take away from it. So I love to see that. I guess for the final show, instead of doing a parlay, I'm just going to kind of outline a couple of different parlay legs that you could use on your own. I don't know what your sites allow in terms of like parlaying a prop with a team total, but like, Rob, for me, I guess we can each give two of our two best thoughts. So for me, I really like Garth's over points and assists with Elliot Cadeau, and I also like the over 3-point makes for UConn, whatever that is at your book. I think they're going to have to hit threes to stay in this game. Rob, give me your two sort of best, or if you only want to go with one, I know you like a team total, what those would be.
Yeah, I think the team total would be my best look here. Connecticut team total over 68.5 points in this game. I think for a prop, and again, I'm doing this blind because I'm not really a props guy, and I will look into it a little bit after this show because I may end up landing there myself with a personal bet. But I think Alex Caravan, points plus rebounds. If the number is conducive to playing it, maybe you go PRA with him because he's a good passer as well. But I would think points and rebounds out of Caravan, he's the one guy for UConn that you guys have watched us for 6 months now. I'm kind of big on bounce backs. Guys who underperform in one game or teams that underperform, I feel like they come back the next game. Caravan somewhat underperformed offensively in that game against Illinois on Saturday. So I would think Alex Caravan points plus rebounds over the number. And as I mentioned earlier, the best look I have here is UConn, win or lose, just to get to 69 points, up and over 68.5.
We'll be interested to see who cuts down the Nets tonight in Indy. Signing off for the last time until November. It's going to be here before you know it. So we will see you guys probably November 1st. The season just continues to start earlier. I think it was the 1st last year, and probably will be again. I actually was with the guys when they announced that the season opener will be High Point and Liberty at midnight. That's going to be the game that opens the 2026-2027 season. Will be High Point Liberty in Rock Hill, South Carolina at midnight as part of the Field of 68, which is going to be a 24-hour marathon this year. So all the Field of 68 guys are here, and then they and then I think they publicly said it like a day later. So I think that's like out there now that that'll be the season opener. It'll be here before you know it. But hope everyone has a great summer. Don't forget, Rob and Ski go every day with the NBA, and the NBA playoffs are around the corner. I'll be on daily, 6 days a week. Tokyo Brandon, Brian Leonard, and myself. Have a great summer, everyone. If you're just here for college basketball, we'll see you in the fall, and take care.